this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures. Today I'm back with day 6 of my 2020 holiday card series, and this time I'm making little treat bags with stamps and dies by Sunny Studio Stamps. I just bought these recently and I'm just obsessed with them, they're so cute. I started by stamping out the images from Gleeful, Reindeer, and North Pole, and I'm just coloring them in with my Copic markers. For my greens, I'm using G02, G00, and G000. I just added flakes of the G02 for my second layer again because they were mostly blended out and I really wanted them to show up a little bit. And then I'm just slightly blending it out with a G00 again. For my brown colors on this card, I'm using E40 markers. For the darkest shade, I'm using E47, then blending that out with E44. Then going back in with a little more of the E47 on the sleigh. And then blending everything together with E43. For my grays, I'm using C5 for the sleigh and also for the little silver bell. Then C3, and then blending it out with C1. For the hair, I'm also using E40 markers, but I left out the E47, just going in with E44, E43, and then going also in as well with E41. Just deepening up the shadows again with E44, blending it out with E43, and then going over with everything, going over everything with E41 again. For my skin tone, I'm using E11 as my darkest shade, blending that out with E00, going in with a second layer of the E11 just to make it a tiny bit darker, blending that together with the E00, and then blending the center with E000. For the pinks on this card, I'm using R80 markers, R85 as my darkest shade, just on the costume of the elf, then blending that out with E83, just going over the edge, then going in with R81, and I wanted the blend to be fairly light, so I'm also using RV000 as my lightest shade. For my teals, I'm using BG78 as my darkest shade, blending that out with BG75, BG72 as my second to lightest shade, and then finally going in with BG70 as my highlight shade. And off camera, I colored the rest of the images using the same color combinations as I used before. I die cut all the pieces for the Sweet Treat bag and also the Sweet Treat bag house add-on, which is where this little bow and wreath are from, and I just used the same Copic markers to just add some shading to those. I'm just adhering the pieces of the bow to create like a dimensional look, which I think is super cute. And then I'm just using liquid glue to adhere it to the wreath. Off camera, I also cut out a few circles, and I colored them with the same markers that I used before and attached them to the wreath just for some added interest. To create the bag, you need to die cut the main piece of the treat bag twice, and I'm just using a brick stencil to add some light pink brick pattern to my treat bag. And at first I just wanted to put it on the main panels, not on the sides, and then I changed my mind and I added it to the sides as well. And for the second piece, I actually got smarter and realized that my stencil actually fit on the entire piece and I didn't have to mask it. But you know, you learn. So here's my second piece, and I'm just adding some tape to the bottom because that piece I wanted to stay white. Now I'm just lining up my stencil again, and the ink I'm using is Spun Sugar Distress ink. And I'm purposefully like adding some darker areas, some lighter areas, so that it just adds a little bit more interest to the background and not look like totally uniform. I'm also adding the spun sugar to the backing for the door and the windows that come with the Sweet Treat house add-on, or Sweet Treat back house add-on. For the roof, I die cut the main backing piece and also the individual pieces of the roof, and I'm also adding some spun sugar to the edges of that. Now I'm attaching the frame for the doors and the windows to the backing pieces, so you would have a white door with and white window frames with a pink inlay, which I thought was really cute. Now I'm just folding along the score lines that the die creates, and I'm just using my bolt folder to reinforce all the score lines. So you just fold it at the first fold line to create the main panel, then you fold in the angled pieces, and then there's just the tiny flap that will attach to the inside of your card of your treat bag. And again, just using the bone folder to make sure that everything is nicely creased. And now I'm also folding up the bottom tabs, again using the bone folder, and I just did the same thing for the second panel as well. And now I'm just using some score tape to basically assemble my box later on, and I'm just using the 1/4 of an inch score tape for the short flaps, and then I'm using the 1/2 inch version on the short ends of the flaps just in the center. Off camera, I also attached the roof pieces to the main panel for the roof. I just started from the bottom and alternated the two versions, just gluing them with liquid glue right on top of each other. And to the bottom edge of the roof, as you can see here, I just added some foam tapes to give my roof a little bit of dimension, and the top I just added some liquid glue. And now I'm just folding back the side flap just so that it's easier to see the width of the box, because sometimes with the score line you think it's actually a bit wider than it ends up being. So I just added some liquid glue to the backs of the windows and the door, sorry. And I'm just trying to make sure that the distance between the windows and the door is about the same on both sides. This is why I love using liquid glue for that, because you can have some time to wiggle everything around until it's nice and lined up. I also die cut a snowy hill panel just out of some white cardstock, and I'm using the thin foam squares from scrapbook adhesives just to add a little bit of dimension but not a lot of bulk, if that makes sense. Then I'm also adding the Christmas tree, and I'm just cutting off the white border of the bottom of the pile of presents and attaching that to the tree, and that just makes it look more seamless as opposed to having the white line on the sleigh or on the sled, and I really like that. I just added some liquid glue to the back of the wreath, and I'm adding that to the door, and here you can also see the little circles I just die cut. I used the same R80 markers on those just for, a little bit of added interest. Now I'm adding the North Pole sign and also the little sled with the presents just flat onto the background. But then I realized if I attach that, I don't know where to put my elf. So I started with her, just lining it up roughly and then attaching both. The sled is just attached flat, like I said, and the elf has a little bit of dimension with the foam tape. And now it's time to assemble the box. Or the treat bag, which is super easy. You just remove the liner paper of the score tape and line up the two pieces so that the edges match up, and then you just press into the adhesive. I folded down the other side, the short piece flat, removed the backing paper, and then just lined up the top edges again, and then you just press down. I'm just using my bone folder to go over the adhesive just so that it's nice and adhered. Now I'm removing the backing paper for the wider pieces for the short flaps. Just folding those in. And I'm just pressing down the first flap into the adhesive. And I'm pretty sure you can, they're possibly meant to fold a different way, but I wasn't sure, and this worked totally fine. So I just added some liquid glue to that flap and pressed it down. I did end up adding a little bit too much glue, but I just wiped it off and it was fine. Now I'm just going to use my bone folder again to just press down on the inside. Sorry, my head's popping in there. Now it's time to embellish. Always my favorite part. I'm just using the Nuvo Aqua Shimmer Pen in glitter gloss, just on top of, well, most of the images really. Just adding lots of shimmer and sparkle. And my pen was running kind of dry, so I just pressed out a little bit more, but then you always have to wipe it off so that it doesn't drip on your card. And just going over the same areas to add even more shine. And because that really wasn't enough, I added the Stardust Stickles, which are my absolute favorite. They're so gorgeous. So I'm just adding that to the like snowy areas of the tree, or like lighter areas. I'm adding thicker drops to the dots on the wreath and also a little bit to the center of the bow. Just going over them so that they're kind of rounded. Adding it to the top of the North Pole sign as well. And then I wasn't quite sure because it was like, it could ruin the entire treat box, but I'm just gonna go with it. So I just ran the stickles along the scalloped edge of the roof of each piece, and oh my god, I just love how that turned out. It just adds the most beautiful, like, icy sparkle, and it's just so pretty. I hope that you'll be able to see it from the lighting in the video, but the sparkle in real life is just so pretty. Now I'm just running that along, like I said, all the scalloped edges. Not too much, just a like thin line. And then I'm also adding a little bit to the top of the roof, like it's the ice is like dripping down a little bit. Like ice won't drip, but I think you know what I mean. And that finishes off my project for today. I'm so happy with how it turned out. The sparkle from the Stickles is just gorgeous. And this little treat back house is just the most adorable thing ever, with a cute little elf standing in front of, you know, the North Pole house, which I can just imagine. It's just so adorable. I really enjoyed making this. I had a ton of fun, and this is actually my dry run for my little presents. I usually, during like Christmas time, I usually bring like little cookies or something to work, and I always like make something crafty, and this is the one that I will be using this year, which I think is so cute. Thank you so very much for watching. Please stay safe and healthy, and have a wonderful day. Bye!